Richard Nixon was elected as a conservative Republican president in 1968. Nixon tended to contradict his conservatism by passing different social reform laws in order to gain support from people of varying political ideologies. He focused on social reforms that provided jobs and income, expanded the policy rules of local governments, and used private market mechanisms rather than direct government provisions. The Supplementary Security Income Program was enacted in 1972 in order to replace previous adult welfare programs. Important features of this program assisted adults with mental health disorders and physical disabilities. Nixon also drastically transformed food stamps, which assisted many of the working poor. For the first time, the federal government was dedicated to funding social services for people living near the poverty line. Examples include the Local Fiscal Act of 1972, which gave funds to local governments to use for their operating expenses. Nixon was also able to pass 2 of his 6 proposed special revenue sharing programs. They were the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act of 1973 and the Community Development Block Grant portion of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. Between 1972 and 1974, the government made many strides to prohibit gender discrimination in employment. For example, in 1972, Nixon approved the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 was also passed to help stop discrimination against those with physical disabilities by helping to provide accessible transportation, buildings, and jobs. President Ford took office when Nixon resigned in 1974. He served for only a brief period as Jimmy Carter was elected in 1976. Ford was conservative and vetoed many efforts to increase social spending by Congress. The vetoes were often overridden by the Democratic majority Congress. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was enacted to provide resources to schools to support students with physical and mental disabilities to be placed in typical classrooms. The women's movement of the 1970s focused on issues like job discrimination, resources for childcare, equal pay, and sexual harassment in the workplace. More legal protections also became available to immigrants in detention camps, the LGBT community, people with physical and developmental disabilities, Indigenous people, and prisoners.